Hello, hello! This is Gemini, your friendly neighborhood spy. Today I'm excited to present my next Fire Emblem Heroes Theorycraft. Who said that Theorycrafts had to be restricted to heroes alone? This time I'll be talking about my Theorycraft for a Gauntlet weapon type, if it were to be added to Fae. As I already said in my Ascended May and Rearmed Matthew Theorycraft videos, I don't consider myself to be an expert on the meta at all. As such, I'm sure the weapons and skills I've invented could be tweaked in some ways, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback about any of my ideas in the comments. I had a lot of fun speculating about what kinds of effects this weapon type would have, and what its overall impact on the game could be. So with that said, let's get right into it. There was a lot to consider when I first started trying to imagine how to adapt the Gauntlet weapon type to Fae. So far, Gauntlets have really only existed as a weapon type in the past 2 games in the franchise, Three Houses and Engage. I started by listing out the major recurring characteristics of Gauntlets in those 2 games. The main characteristic across both games was that they almost always have a built-in Brave effect. Engage also changed the way the Gauntlets, or arts, deal damage, averaging strength and magic together. I also had to ask myself what color Gauntlets should be, whether they should be restricted to colorless or be like beast units, which were immediately available in all 4 colors. Also, I really wanted to come up with a way to make Gauntlets feel unique. When beast weapons were added, they were so different from any other weapon type, and that made them really exciting. I wanted Gauntlet weapons to feel different from other melee weapons, so that was a major consideration in my Theorycraft. Finally, I thought about which characters from the Fire Emblem games would be good candidates to be introduced as Gauntlet units. I also thought about potential Ascended and Rearmed heroes along with Seasonals too. In the end, I designed a total of 3 characters who I think could be added to the game with Gauntlets, including a different weapon for each and a potential kit too. As we look at the first build idea, I'll explain my overall idea for Gauntlets. First up is Fram from Fire Emblem Engage. I ultimately decided that Gauntlets would be limited to being colorless during their initial release. However, like with bows and daggers, they could eventually be expanded into the other colors. I also decided that Gauntlets would have a much lower might than other weapons in Fae. For the 3 weapons I came up with, each has only 3 might. To offset this, Gauntlets have 2 strengths. Like how every bow weapon is effective against flying enemies, every Gauntlet weapon has the Brave effect and a status called True Strike. True Strike allows the weapon to completely ignore damage reduction. While Gauntlets don't hit as hard as other weapon types, they hit more often and strike unerringly, guaranteeing that their foe can't get out of the way. The main idea behind them as a weapon type is that they can still be countered by units with genuinely high defense stats, but they'll make quick work of heroes that rely only on damage reduction for survivability. As for Fram, she's an infantry Gauntlets unit with relatively balanced stats except for her low defense. She would be intended as a premium 5-star hero. In addition to the Brave and True Strike effects of the Gauntlets, Defined Fire also gains additional special attack charge and can't be counterattacked if her resistance is higher than her foes. Finally, if her HP is high, then she also grants damage reduction to nearby allies. This is meant to simulate the Chain Guard command in Engage, which Fram can use to prevent damage to allies. For the rest of her kit, she has Glacies as her special to take advantage of her high resistance stat. She also gains Attack Res Finish and Tier 4 Breath of Life. In addition to healing allies after attacking, Breath of Life 4 also purges them of penalties. Overall, Fram is a supportive combat unit with balanced stats. Let's move on to our next build. Next up is Raphael from Fire Emblem Three Houses. I wanted to create at least 1 unit as a Gauntlet demote. Now, I adore Raphael. He's one of my favorite characters from Three Houses. But I think he's got demo written all over him. It already happened for a seasonal after all. But that just means he's easier to get, so no worries there. Like Fram, Raphael is an infantry Gauntlet unit. For his stats, I gave him very high HP, strength, and defense, while his speed and resistance are low. These are based off his stat growths from Three Houses. Where Fram's weapon gave her supportive abilities, Raphael's weapon, Pummeling Shot, is all about power. In addition to the Brave effect and True Strike, Raphael gains a bonus to his attack and defense in combat as long as the bonus is currently active on him. Additionally, he gains a damage boost whenever he activates his special. On top of all of that, the weapon would be both inheritable and refinable. For the rest of his kit, he has Bonfire as a special. He also has Solid Ground 3, which serves as excellent fodder for anyone who wants to inherit Solid Ground 4 and another skill. Finally, he also comes with Attack Defense 03 to help him gain the bonus that he needs to get the full use of his weapon. Overall, his kit complements his weapon and allows him to deal significant damage while still having room to be built upon with premium skills. Now let's take a look at the final Theorycraft build for today. Here we have Kaspar. Kaspar is a 5-star armor gauntlet unit with a premium kit. His stats are geared toward offense with both high speed and attack. Now we all know that Kaspar loves to run in and punch his foes, so his weapon is Reckless Strike. If Kaspar initiates combat, he gains an additional +7 to his attack and speed during combat. Additionally, if he moved even a single space before attacking, he gains even more speed and is able to make a follow-up attack before his foe can counterattack. He still has to be fast enough to gain the follow-up attack, but he has a high enough speed that it can definitely be done. As for his kit, I gave him a new special skill called Fierce Iron Fist. Like Deadeye and Lethality for bows and daggers, this skill is restricted to the Gauntlet weapon type. When he activates this special during combat, all of his remaining attacks for the rest of the combat gain 5 true damage, and he also gains a 3rd attack instead of the normal 2 granted by the Brave effect. Depending on his build, this gives him the potential to attack up to 6 times in a single combat. To ensure that he can charge his special quickly, I gave him Special Fighter 4 in his B slot. Finally, he comes with Assault Troop in his C slot to bolster his movement so that he can take full advantage of his weapon. With this build, Kaspar should serve as a significant offensive threat, especially against units who normally rely upon damage reduction to tank attacks. For the last part of this Theorycraft, I wanted to speculate about which characters might be added into the game with the Gauntlet weapon type. There are plenty of others, but these were just a few of the units that came to mind. Obviously, the list leans heavily into Engage, since Engage is one of the few games to have included this weapon type. While Jean, Pandreo, or Gregory could easily be staff units, they also each use arts in their game as well. However, I didn't want to limit the list to only Engage and 3 Houses characters. Just like many Thief characters throughout the series were given the dagger weapon type in Fae, even if daggers didn't exist in their game of origin, I thought about which other characters could potentially be justified as using gauntlets. I think Cecil is a little bit of a stretch, but I was trying to add some variety. Anyway, I also considered characters that have already been added to Fae, but that could have reasonably had gauntlets as a weapon if they were available in Fae. As such, I listed these units as potential Ascended or Rearmed heroes. Obviously, this list leans heavily into 3 Houses. I basically just picked a bunch of characters that have an aptitude for the brawling weapon proficiency. I decided that it was only fair that Balthus got the first slot considering he possesses the Regalia Gauntlet weapon in 3 Houses. Otherwise, I picked characters who I could see as a brawler based on their strengths or personality in the games they're from. Finally, I tried to think of some units that I thought would be fun to see using gauntlets in a seasonal alt. Obviously, the characters on the Ascended and Rearmed list could fit here just as easily. I tried to mostly pick characters that haven't gotten alts, or at least haven't gotten one in a while. Hector, however, just felt too perfect as a brawler to pass up. Also, I wanted to include a lot of variety in terms of aesthetic and personality. Now, here we are at the final wrap-up. I had a lot of fun coming up with ideas, builds, and additional characters for a potential gauntlet weapon in Fae. Since this is just a conceptual Theorycraft, I would love to hear any thoughts or comments you might have about any aspect of my idea. What do you think of the built-in Brave effect and the True Strike skill? How about the low weapon might? Are gauntlets too powerful, or are they not strong enough to be a reasonable threat? Also, please feel free to share any ideas you have for Fram, Raphael, or Kaspar's overall builds, or any other characters that you would like to see as a brawler. I can already think of a few others who I didn't even include on my list, so I'd love to hear your ideas. But that's where I'll wrap up for today. If you liked the video, then please remember to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. With that, thank you so much for watching, and Gemini out.